Hello! Today we are going to talk about yarn weight. If you hear that, you might think how heavy it is, how much does it weigh? And while yarn labels do include information about the actual weight, the heaviness, that is not what we are talking about today. When we talk about the weight of yarn, we are actually talking about its thickness. If it's really small or really wide. The Yarn Council has put together a handy little chart. You can check that out here. You can also follow the link below in the description to go directly to their website. A friend of mine asked me to make him some shamrocks for St. Patrick's Day, and I showed him different yarn options and he decided on 3 of them. They were all a different weight. So if you look here, we have this sage green, a golden yellow, and a teal green here. The sage and the golden yellow are very similar in size. They are approximately a sport weight yarn. Check out this yarn label here. This is for the sage green. It doesn't actually include a number indicator or even a word indicator of what the weight of this yarn is, but it does have the gauge swatch information here in that little box. That is where it is telling us how many stitches across how many rows will give us a 4-inch square. For this sage green, that's 23 stitches and 30 rows will give us a 4-inch square or a 10 centimeter square. The other thing that clues us in here is that it tells us what size needles to use. US size 5 or 6, or 3.5 to 4 millimeter needles. The golden yellow yarn label here tells us how many stitches to get a 4 inches, which is 20 to 22. So this is a range, and you notice how it has slightly less than the sage green, 20 to 22 instead of 23. And they are recommending using 4 to 4.5 millimeter or US 6 to 7 needles to get this gauge swatch. That tells us that those are pretty similar in size, with the sage green being slightly smaller weight than the golden yellow. If we look at this teal yarn label here, it says to use US 9 or 6 millimeter needles, and that you will need 15 stitches and 20 rows to get a 4-inch or a 10 centimeter square. So significantly less stitches across and significantly less rows to get you that 4 inches. So the yarn is bigger. It's taking up more space with every stitch, so less of those stitches fit in 4 inches. When I visually look at the sage and the yellow yarn yarn looks smaller, tighter to me. So I used a smaller hook. This is a crochet project I did for my friend. So I used a smaller hook for that one than I did for the sage green. And an even bigger hook was used for the teal. So what does that do to our end product? Let's take a look. Here is that golden yellow. For this golden yellow here, when you are crocheting in amigurumi, the general advice is to go 2 sizes smaller than what the yarn recommends so that the stitches are nice and tight, close together, and you can't see the stuffing through any of your stitches here. So that is what I did. I dropped down a couple of sizes, and I used this size B or 2.25 millimeter. The yarn I was using was recommending using a 4 millimeter, and I instead used 2.25 to get this size of project. Then there's the sage green one. The sage green is relatively similar in size, the weight of the yarn, the circumference of it, width, and it recommended using a 3.5 to 4. I used a D hook, which is 3.25 millimeters for this one. And look how different in size these two ended up being. You can see that the sage green is significantly bigger, even though the yarn is relatively similar. So the weight of the yarn and the size of needles or hook that we use really impacts the end result of the project that we make. So let's take a look here at the teal green one that was made with bigger yarn and a bigger hook. Here is that finished shamrock. For this one, I used a size F hook, which is a couple of sizes smaller than this yarn would typically be done with, for the same reason, to make the stitches nice and tight and so that you can't see the stuffing through the stitches. And when we compare these two, we can see that the teal green one is a bit bigger than the sage green. And it is a lot bigger than this golden yellow. So this created a fun little garden of shamrocks that are all different sizes in yarn. So just using different hooks with our yarn can make things different sizes, and if the yarn is different size as well, that will definitely change the proportions of what it is we're making. And what I didn't necessarily say specifically is these were done using the exact same pattern. So each of these is the same number of stitches, just changed the size because of the width, the circumference of the yarn. So the weight of yarn changes the needles or hooks that we would use to make the project, and it also changes the size of the project when we're done with it. Thanks for joining me to learn about yarn weight today. I hope you have a better understanding now and that you enjoy your projects with whatever weight of yarn you're using.